This is a build video for the masts of the brig from the pirate ship series, part 1. In the last video we completed the main hull structure. Today we will start working on the masts. But before we jump right in, here's a little introduction on the layers involved so you have an idea how and what to use for different sections of the mast. Before we start working with the mast parts, I want to do a quick tour on the file and the layers you have available so that you have an idea what you can choose and what you have to choose for certain things. So when you open up the layers file, it should look something like this. If you don't see this layers section on the left side, you need to click this red highlighted button on the left side and then the layers should appear. So the first thing I usually do is I turn the fold lines off, because I have hint lines outside of the parts so that you don't have the texture messed up with the layer scoring lines with the dotted lines. There are certain of aesthetic options you can choose from. You can inverse the basic wood color into a darker wood tone. And you can do stuff like having a black mast or a white mast. Usually what I do is I turn on the bleached layer, which makes the colors a bit desaturated, as if they've been too long in the sun. And also a good idea is to have the lighter color on, because that'll use less ink. So with these artistic choices covered, we are now coming to an important section, and these are the layers describing where the cut lines would be for making the masts into the appropriate modules that you can glue together. So here I've activated the main mast extending cuts, and you'll see here on the first part on the left and on the third part there's like one line on the top, and these are the parts that form the outer layer of the mast. And the textured part obviously is the one on the outside of these, and the white one is the one on the inside of these. So both of these form the outside assembly. And to reinforce this whole thing, there are another two parts which only have like 3 segments, and these will form an inner like skeleton part to help keep the mast sturdy and also upright aligned. On the next page, which looks like this, we have these cut lines, and these will help forming the cuts for the upper mast assembly, which basically will be 2 further layers to go up. Now for the bowsprit mast, or the front mast extending kind of horizontally in front of the boat, you will use the second page, but with this bowsprit extending cuts, so you see they are different than before, and these will help to assemble that section. We will also need the bird's nests. If you don't use cut data with the auto cutter, I also turn off the registry marks, copyright, and the labels just to save ink. Okay, so now you know what you should and how you should print the mast parts. We'll head over to the demonstration so you can see what it all actually means. This is a completed mast assembly, and I'll just show you quickly how it is meant to work. You can also see red lines, sail attachment points, and the top flags, which we will cover in a later video. I'll remove the lower red lines first. I have built this mast in 3 modules that you can take apart. Of course, you can also glue it all into one part. I have a bottom, middle and top mast section. I'll also take the upper red lines off for now. Each mast section is made of 2 parts, an outer hull and an inner core structure, each made of 2 layers. The inner core structure will make the mast sturdy, but also add the functionality to connect different modules. Here you can see how the bottom mast could be inserted into the middle section. And here the middle is inserted into the top section. By connecting all 3 sections, you form a full mast. I'll add the red lines now, but we'll cover them in detail in a later video. By the way, this is just my pure paper approach. If you want, you can replace the sailing rig with other materials of your liking and skill. The masts are inserted into the hull via these openings. This is just one approach, and I can imagine others that work also. Make sure to watch the full build of the masts before you start on your own, so you can understand all the interconnections and how they relate to each other. This is the first page of the masts file. Here you see the outer part of the mast hull and the inner part of the mast hull. These 2 parts are the parts of the inner mast structure. To better understand how the split cuts work, I'll show you a finished assembly next to it. These cut lines represent the split of the long main base mast part. The white part extending is the inner mast core. This short part from the middle assembly is the short part from the outer mast part. I'll start to cut and score the parts now. As usual, I prefer to score the fold lines with an empty ball pen. I color the edges and the middle line of the inner layer of the outside parts. And then I pre-fold all parts. Finally, I glue the outside layer over the inner layer, covering half the inner layer for now. Same with the core parts, but they will cover 2/3 overlap. I use the ruler to help spread the glue evenly over the contact surface. Make sure to let this dry thoroughly now. To close the shapes, I will start with the core part and glue it into a triangle shape like this. To close the outsides, I curl the inner wide overlap as small as I can and then apply glue to the inner side of the outside extending textured part. And just roll it over to close the seam. With the help of a chopstick, I finalize the gluing. Again, let the parts dry thoroughly before you continue. Once dried, you can squeeze the mast shape into a proper round shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, close enough should do. Before I insert the core part, I squeeze it from a triangle shape into a tri-star kind of shape, as shown. This will fit better inside the outside part. I cut off the lower part of the core as it will be in the way once inserted into the hull. To make the end easier to insert, I cut little triangles from the corners of the core. In order for the mast to be inserted, we need to cut out slots that will align with the core structure from the hull, peeking through the mast opening. But make sure the later added bird's nests will be at the right angle. I will show how to cut this later again in the video. To fix the core against the outer mast, I will add some glue at the ends. Make sure the extending part of the core is aligned correctly at the cut line. For the mast shoe, I'll strengthen the circle part with another layer of cardboard. The thin strip will be wrapped around the bottom of the mast where it is inserted. This should cover up any gaps between the mast and the mast opening. Cut out the reinforced ring part. Before we glue on the bottom mast strip, we need to mark the right height. Next we can glue the strip correctly. Finally, glue the ring part over the opening. Now the lower base mast can be inserted. Here I have a mast where the insertion slots are not cut out yet. Once you add the next middle mast section, you want to make sure the bird's nest part is aligned correctly. The back edge should be at 90 degrees to the ship's longitudinal axis. So I mark where the slots should be here and cut them out. Check the alignment and adjust the cuts if needed. Don't worry if the mast fit is too wobbly for your taste. The red lines will help stabilize the mast in position for a detachable build. This concludes part 1 of the mast assembly of the brig. Join me next time when we build the upper mast structures. If you have questions or feedback, feel free to leave a comment. I hope you'd enjoy this video and I will see you next time.